Good evening, all. Camera's a little bit squiffy, but let's fix that. Hopefully, you can hear me all right. I hope you've all had a good weekend. Some fun stuff to talk about this evening, and I'm going to get my camera right, I promise. There we go. It's better. Um, how are we all? Good evening to Socially Confused, Demented Jeeper. I think that's the first time we've said hi, so good to see you. Good evening socially to Timble, to Jammy Bugger, Jadomo, Zaveth, Chippy, Diz Troy, and Neil B. Good to see you all, and to everyone else in chat, Mad Teapot as well, that haven't said hi yet. I just realised I might have mucked my streaming settings slightly. I'm on a normal latency, so it might take me a little bit longer to get to your comments and to react to them. Please just hang around. I will get there, I promise. But a couple of fun things to talk about this week. Obviously, wasn't around last week. Just had a couple of things I needed to take care of, and it didn't feel like there was much movement in what was going on. Still on 4.0.1, still a bit of a dumpster fire. Had some issues with it, as we discovered over the weekend. On Friday, we did Friday Night Ops that we do on most Fridays in the Discord. We had a go at the contested zones. And unfortunately, it turned into a little bit of a platoon-style last stand massacre. Basically, because none of the doors would work. So we'd found ourselves loads of fuses, couldn't get the doors to work at all, and then basically got jumped by another party. So, yeah, a little bit frustrating, but we do what we always do in Star Citizen when it gets frustrating, is we just pivoted away, did some other stuff, ran around, did some of the Fight for Pyro stuff, and that. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle. But coming up on the stream today, I have some information about the Perseus that is not confirmed, and I will repeat that. But it looks like it's come from a fairly solid source, and it has some interesting information in it, including information on PDCs and a weapon size change. So we'll be covering that a little bit later, with the caveat that it is not confirmed. This is all rumour, but it's the Perseus. It's the ship that you guys know that I'm absolutely in love with. The ship that I know I'm absolutely in love with. And yeah, I'm just kind of looking forward to, hopefully at some point, actually getting my hands on it this year, which will be great. And if you are as excited as I am for the Perseus, what we will be doing, once we know that it's coming, keep an eye on the Discord, keep an eye on the community tab on the channel. I will be getting as many of us together as I can, and we'll do some big in-game event where we all take Perseuses out and just cause absolute carnage. Because that's what the Perseuses are about, right? Doing some real damage. So yeah. Lots of speculation on what that is. And of course, the other thing that's going on next week, which is going to be important more for everyone, not just for us, people absolutely in love with the Perseus, is that we're getting the first roadmap of 2025. The first roadmap since they said they were switching to the stability rather than the new features. It's going to have in it 4.0.2, we've been told. It's going to have in it 4.1, we've been told. And they've said beyond, although, to be fair, that could just be the road to 1.0 thing that's kind of already there. So, yeah, we'll have to see. Hello to Luna Maria, to Edison, good to see you both. The road to the new roadmap, exactly that. Well, of course, the interesting thing with the roadmap and how that is all slated to work is that, I've been wearing these all day, so the chances are I won't be able to see crap. If you see me squinting a lot, that's why. Because if you ever get a pair of these fucking things, right, and they go, oh yeah, don't worry, just wear them for detail work, it's fine, you won't become reliant on them. They lie to you, yes you will. So be careful. But yes, I'll give it a go anyway. Also because you can kind of see what's on my screen and stuff with it. So yeah, so we'll give that a go. But what they're talking about with these patches is that they are going to go to something in the region of 10 a year. Assuming that they're going to miss one around or two around CitizenCon, when everyone's working flat out for that. It raises very interesting questions about what those patches are going to look like. It raises very interesting questions about what CitizenCon is going to look like, of all other things. But having talked to a whole bunch of people, I think, about 4.0.1 and the strength of, and I will say this, very justified feeling about the state of the game right now. Um, I am cautiously optimistic about the patches that we're going to get. If what they do, if all they have is bug fixes, and all each patch roadmap thing looks like is a list of the fixes that they want to make and the stuff that they're working on, then great. Because I actually happen to agree with them genuinely, not just because they say it and you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because I think a lot of people playing the game, and I won't be alone in this, a lot of us, and I'm sure a lot of you in the chat, have said that if it could just run stable with the features that we have right now, if we could just have missions working 95% of the time, elevators there when you need them, not falling through the floor, not falling through the planet, ships not randomly exploding, actually getting recognized for what you do in the game in terms of, you get the loot that you're after, your loot doesn't disappear out of your inventory or out of your ship, that trading can actually hand in and you get some rep for it. If they can get to that stage, I'm going to play this a lot. Like a lot more than I am right now. And unfortunately, I've not played it anywhere near as much as I wanted to. I'm still 3 of 6 completed for phase 2 of Pyro. So I got to get my butt in gear, but we'll get there. Mad Teapot says 10 patches and 156 server maintenance windows, because it's seemingly 3 a week at the moment, says Mad Teapot. Yeah, 100%. And Socially says, I wonder if the sitcom will be streamed this year. Wouldn't that be interesting? Wouldn't that be interesting? Because given what you kind of hope would happen is that they'd be bug fixing, and then in the background they'll be working on a couple of things. And that's still going to happen to an extent, right? Because Squadron 42 is still in the works. They've talked about Star Citizen. That doesn't mean they're pulling everyone off Squadron 42. And when they were asked that question during Benoit Beausejour's mammoth 3-hour Star Citizen Live, they were, I don't know if you noticed, quite woolly about how that was going to work. And I think it was kind of avoiding them saying some things that, you know what the community's like. We fall on it and we tear stuff apart. Sometimes absolutely reasonably, sometimes not so much. I think they've just kind of sidestepped that and gone, we're not gonna invite that sort of discussion. And I kind of see why. We're not always the easiest crowd to deal with, and as we've seen time and time again, especially recently, people will descend on it for any reason. That was before 4.0. So yeah, we'll see. A stable, playable, persistent game would rock, said Socially. So apparently the mission's not showing when people don't have the right reputation, said Edison. So yeah, there's all sorts of issues with the game at the minute. It's just one of those things that they really need to get into now and fix for all of us, because I don't think for very long, people are going to continue put up with it. It's just that bad at the moment, and of course there are reasons behind it. But as people are fond of pointing out, the reasons are the reasons, but they're not necessarily. It doesn't change the player experience, right? It doesn't change the fact that you have a bad time in it. It doesn't change the fact that and I know a lot of other people have gone in, hit a couple bugs, and they seem to have a much lower threshold. So they hit a couple bugs, and rather than going, okay, I'll pivot to something else, just go, do you know what, I can't be bothered. And the only reason I think we were able to do that on the weekend and pivot away from it was there's a big group of it. I say big group. There was 5 of us playing. So, it was easier to kind of buoy each other up and just move on to something else. Shady Face says, can't get new players and good PR if people are still falling through the planets, elevators won't work and can't get out of the hangars, etc. How better would a free-fly Invictus be with a stable game? Yeah, 100%. And so that's what we're going to see, hopefully this week. Now, we are told the roadmap will come out on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, I've got plans to start work early and therefore finish work early, so that when the roadmap appears, I will be able to get a React video out as quickly as I possibly can to talk through it with you guys and see what we all think. And then, depending on how much there's there, I might try and get another video out this week. But the likelihood is it will be a couple more shorts. Because, I don't know if you noticed, like go me, we've managed to get a good few videos and shorts out over the last few weeks. We've had a long form video or longer form video every week. We've had one or more shorts over the last 3 weeks, and I'm hoping now, I'm kind of hitting my stride with the editing, I'm hoping now to be able to keep that momentum up. I had a cracking series planned called 60-second sit reps. Okay, sit reps enable time for a situation report, or a military time. What I wanted to do was go through every element of CitizenCon 2024, talk about new features coming, and then just pick one element and go, hey, if you want to know anything about base building, here's it in 20 seconds. And then just basically create shorts that give you what was going on in the game in specific development aspects. So it'd be like new suits of armor. One of them was the Valakar, one, you know, and so on and so forth. One was weather in game. And build that up. However, the fact that CIG have kind of pivoted away from that now for new features, and we know all that sort of stuff is slowing down, it felt a little bit strange to do that. So if you guys still want that, I can absolutely still put that out, but it's with the caveat that it is kind of, we know all this stuff is slowing down now whilst they just fix the base game and make it run properly. So we'll see. Ray Ladowet, good evening, sir. Good to see you. No apology required, mate. Glad to have you in. I fell through a station and then fell in space. It was special. You fell in space. That shouldn't happen. But yes, I'm with you entirely. That's rough. Yeah, bad teapot. Lucky for being able to leave the station, he says. Says Edison. So yeah. Yeah, Edison's just has awful luck getting out of anything at the minute. Hangars, stations. You are having a rough time of it, mate. I know. Yeah, so that's where we're going to go. And I will get to, I promise, the Perseus in just a little bit here. I just know that's going to be what a lot of people want to focus on. So give time to build the stream up with a little momentum, and then we will get going. So yeah, so that's going to be the idea on Wednesday. If you're not already subbed to all that sort of good stuff, smash the like button because it's fun. Make sure you're subscribed as well, because then that video, I will, as quickly as I find it, I will get into the studio, get a react on it, and get that out to you guys. Obviously, it's not going to be polished with loads of visuals, but it will be talking head stuff, face to face, and we'll talk through it about as much as we can. Because now maybe I can keep up with the news a little bit more, now that things in work have come down a bit. I'd love to see a ship on how to run a ship. A video on how to run a ship from a naval officer perspective socially. Yeah, so the naval command stuff and that kind of naval, the command and control element, the damage control element, setting a ship up for what we call action stations, what the Americans call battle stations, all that sort of stuff. There are plans afoot, but I have something very, very impressive, but it's going to be a struggle to pull off. So if I can get it going, if I can get people involved and the right people to say yes, it's going to be something else, I promise. It will be something the likes of which you will have never seen on any Star Citizen channel ever. So yeah, we'll see. But it will be the sort of kind of real world setting and real world context that people can rarely bring to games. So hopefully that's enough of a tease. Hopefully that's enough to keep you kind of excited for that sort of stuff. But yes. And what's quite good fun is there are certain systems that I've sat and thought about for a while about how would you take this Navy thing and put it into a game. And the good news is there are a couple that I think would work. So we can talk about that. Long story short, there's going to be a long series. And then when we get the Perseus, the Polaris, and the Hammerhead as Navy ships, I will be reviewing them as a Navy officer. Not sure about wearing the uniform yet. Not sure about putting the uniform back on. I'm not convinced. But, you know, we'll see. But yeah, we'll give that a go. So, Dark Tidings says, something I feel you could be very good at is that there's no content on the SC community on its fleet compositions in SC based on fundamental naval tactics. That would be an awesome video. Not saying you should, just a suggestion, lol. Mate, absolutely. And the thing with that is, if you have a look at Fleet Builder, I have 2 videos now in a Fleet Builder series. It's a playlist. I look at 2 scenarios. We looked at the blockade runner as a scenario, and we did the base building fleets as a scenario. And in the Discord, I put out an announcement for Fleet Builder, and what I do is not just react with my own fleets and I look at builds for 5, 10 player fleets. So that's 2, 1 of 5 players, 1 of 10 players, and then I do an org level, which is just the ridiculous forget that this is a game. Let's look at how it would work in the in the lore setting. So it's like just ridiculously big fleets and all that sort of stuff with subgroups in it, and yeah, lots of fun to put together. It is a lot of staring at kind of the Hangerlink stuff, but see what you think, and maybe that's what you're after. And if it's not, please feel free to put some feedback in, and I will endeavour to make it the series that you guys want it to be. So far, what I've learned from watching streamers is that when in doubt, just ram with the capital ship. It works, but wear a hat. 100%. Amidships, good evening. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. I'm trying to be careful with this. I was on the ship after view yesterday for drinks with Chief Petty Officer Naval Intelligence. So, yeah, I got some great photos, which unfortunately, because of security regulations, I cannot share on social media sort of thing just yet, because they're still a little bit twitchy. I've got one stood at the top of the ramp, which I'm going to share because it's the ramp, and it's like, hey, this is a deck, and that's where it drops off, and there's a guardrail, and there's literally nothing classified about it. But everything else, I've just got to be a little bit careful. But this one was exciting because I managed to get into the operations room in HQ1, which we weren't allowed into previously. So, yeah, it's a little bit strange. I'm not going to lie. Being on one of the UK's new carriers was, I don't recognise them. They're crazy inside. So, yeah, you've got to share the ramp photo. It's tradition. I mean, I don't know how well this is going to show up, right? Because it's on my phone rather than anything else. But let's have a look. I don't know. Oh, it does have PR in the background, so I'm going to need to shift it. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but if you can't see, that is yours truly stood on the ramp of Queen Elizabeth, the UK's flagship, yesterday out in sunny, bizarrely for February, sunny Portsmouth, pre-drinks, so I was sober in that photo, but yes, very, very cool, just such impressive. She's 70,000 tons of awesome. Just very, very cool. But yeah, so there's that. There are other photos and I've got other video and stuff, but unfortunately it's just, I don't want to upset anyone by sharing stuff that I shouldn't. So that'll be that, and it might not, I might actually cut that out of the live stream and just go, sorry, classified, or, you know. Unfortunately, I didn't have the bit of tape to stick to my face to be like, haha, you can't see me because I'm Special Forces. But yeah, very, very cool. Never been on a carrier, only a battleship, so socially, I'm jealous. Yeah, they are, there's a lot of security considerations to get on, but luckily enough, like I say, being ex-forces and having friends who still serve, yeah, I was lucky enough to be invited on, and have a walk around, which was something else. Yeah, good fun. Okay, so I guess we're going to get to the bit that everyone's kind of waiting for, huh? I'm interested to see what the viewer numbers are going to be after this, because people are going to be like, no, we don't want any more. But let's jump across. I've just realised I'm going to have to move myself initially because where I am on the camera is in front of some of the text. I will caveat, we are about to look at a leak on the Perseus. Okay, this has not been data mined. This has come from another source. This was basically within CIG, but the person or people responsible for this, it was not intentional. So I'm not going to say any more than that. because I'm not hanging out anyone to dry. That's not what's happened. I was going to do a video on this and then realised that would be a bad idea. But if I couch it in the middle of a live stream, and I'm deliberately vague, hopefully I don't get anyone in trouble. But what we're looking at here is what it looks like, the components and the weapon sizes of the Perseus, and there's a couple of surprises in here. So, grabbing me and moving me out the way, there we go. Fabulous. Okay. So, what we are looking at here, good evening Jedi, good to see you. What we're looking at here are, you've got your shields, power plant, coolers, quantum drive, jump drive, okay, and then in the bottom right we've got the weapons. Now, interesting conversation came up. Hey Stunner, good to see you. Yeah, there's some really nice things in here, and we're going to talk about that right now. So, I don't know if my mouse shows up on the screen. Let me know if it does or it doesn't. I can't remember whether I'd set it on and off. So, a couple of things here that are going to be important for us to kind of be aware of. The original did not specify the number of PDCs, okay? We also had twin size 3s, not twin size 4s. I will say, again, this is not confirmed. Okay, Jonathan Briand, good to see you. So yeah, just no mouse pointer. Yeah, I can see that. That's no problem. Okay, so we have 2 torpedo launchers, each equipped with 10 size 5 for 20 20 total. Okay, so that's your torp allowance. 10 from each, and size 5s. The twin size 4 remotes are the twin turret on the roof, roof of the bridge, or on the deck head, as we say in the naval trade, and then the one that sits down aft between the 2 engine modules and just sits there and covers the aft arcs. So that's interesting. What we also get here is obviously the 2 twin size 7 mans, which I don't know if you can see that, but it's just under where it says 10 size 5 torps. You can see that turret now extended out and drop down below the hull. So if you haven't seen that before, lots of questions about what sort of arcs it's going to get. That sort of arcs, which is actually really impressive for a large turret like that. So it's going to see an awful lot. It looks like the real problems here, if that's the vessel, with the tip of my fingers being... I've got to be careful with motions like that, haven't I? People get in trouble with stuff like that now. But if the tip of my fingers is the front of the ship, okay, it looks like the issues here are going to be anything in this region, behind this nacelle, and then here as well, okay? So you've got basically what you call the port and starboard quarters, which is over the shoulders, because those nacelles are going to block both of the big turrets. So it looks like that's the danger angle for the ship, and of course, you know, that's what their smaller turrets are there to deal with, but they're not going to be able to deal with anything big. So, you know, looking to attack this thing, that's where I put myself. If it came to attacking this thing, I just wouldn't, because it's going to be brutal. And then, yes, as people are picking up, the 4 defense turrets as well, the PDCs, yeah, that's a lot. For something of this size. I was quite impressed, actually. I wasn't expecting... I had in my head, for whatever reason, that it was going to get 3, and it hasn't. It's got 4. So yeah, an awful lot of firepower. Really interesting that they've gone up 1 gun on the twins, which I just think keeps it in line with a lot of what's been going on with the fighters, with everything gradually being upgunned. So much so that I think at some point in the far future, they're going to have to look at all the sizes again and just jig the whole system. But yeah, and obviously the components, I'm not going to die in a ditch over the components, because you just buy the ones you want, right? But that's where it's coming from the moment. 2 size 3 shields, the quadricell, Mercury. Yeah, an interesting setup on the Perseus. I do not know how far out. We've obviously had rumours about, as Shadyface says, Perseus at Invictus, Ironclad at recent Defence Con. He's not saying that's what's happening. He's saying that wouldn't it be great if that happened? Yeah, I would love that sort of thing as well. I think that would be great. However, I'm just going to be happy to have it when it arrives. So yeah. Incredible bit of kit. And like I said, if you have a Perseus, join us when this thing comes out. We'll do a big launch event. If you don't have a Perseus, just join us anyway and jump in. And we're going to need plenty of turret gunners. So jump in and we'll see where we go. Amidship says, a nice little anti-piracy vessel in my estimate. Yeah, absolutely. And what makes this really interesting, of course, is that they've talked about blades for both of the remote turrets. So you've basically got 4 PDCs and 2 twin remote size 4s, also bladed, also working with AI. And the size 4s are just generic size 4s, so put on the size 4s that you want. I think it comes with badges, was what they said initially. I can't remember. I'm just going to have a quick look. So, oh, it was Revenants, sorry. So, can be changed to any size 4. Again, this is not confirmed, but this does seem to be an official source. So, yeah. So interesting. First of all, good evening, Cody. Good to see you, buddy. So the thing about the PDCs is what happened here was the Perseus was the victim of people using poor language. Richard Scarlett, thank you for your vids. Guess I waited a long time for the 1-week trial. Bud, you are very, very welcome. Thank you ever so much. Never required, but always appreciated. Thank you, my friend. When you say the 1-week trial, do you mean the live stream bit, or sorry, the free fly bit, or do you mean something else? Because there are more coming up, and trust me, when you said the 1-week trial, if that's what you mean, the free fly, you're not missing anything. It's a mess at the moment. It's rough. It's very, very rough. But yeah. So Cody, what happened with this was that it kind of became a victim of people's phrasing it. So basically, those 2 turrets, they got said, oh, they're point defense, as in they are used for fighter defense. They didn't mean that they were turning them into, I don't know if that's the terminology they used, but that's where the terminology ended up. People were talking about them as defense turrets. They were always twin size 4 remote that could be bladed, which kind of does the same thing. But they are not the automatic PDCs that first came on the Polaris, now look like they're coming in on this thing. So yeah, the automatic shooting down missiles and torps and that sort of stuff, they were never designed to be that. They were always supposed to be, because that left you with the captain, 2 man turrets, 2 remote turrets, and then either someone in the torpedo room or running around doing the engineering tasks. So yeah, that's where that was. Got very excited when I saw Stockon. No worries at all. So yeah. Catching up with where we are. Yeah, so that's where we are, Cody. Hopefully that clears it up for you. But the PDCs, the ones in terms of what the Polaris got, were never specified how many we had. So the idea initially was I don't even know that they were absolutely sure that it was going to get to them. Because it means if you look at other ships of similar size, like the Carrack and that now, maybe they'll go back and do them again, now that they're introducing them. We'll see. Stro97, any word on release date, or is our best guess still Invictus? I think Invictus is one of those things that it's kind of made its way into people's thoughts, and people are like, oh, it's going to be Invictus, it's going to be Invictus. I haven't seen anything that even indicates Invictus. What we saw it briefly in one of the videos they had, the Fight for Pyro one, I think, is kind of a bit at the beginning where he's looking up into orbit and you've got like a moon or a planet in the background, and you actually saw the outline of the Perseus up there. So they're definitely hinting at soon TM, but we all know what soon TM means, right? I mean, if it's Invictus, I'm going to be over the moon, frankly. But we'll see. And I think that the big thing here is, is just not building yourself up for a fall, basically, not being like, yeah, it's going to be here on what is actually no information right now. So just, we'll see. Escort duty is much easier with 4 PDCs. Yeah, absolutely. Love Manga says, never. I will call BS on you this time. Actually, last question on the Q&A, unless you think that these are new PDCs. I'm not sure what that's in response to, but we can always have a look at the Perseus Q&A if we want to go there and have a look, and we'll see what it says. let's have a look. Perseus, Q and A. Let's have a look. Q&A Perseus. Let's have a look. Because I'm always, if I'm wrong, I'm always happy to be wrong and happy to talk about it. Let's have a look. I'm going to drag that across. Boink. Pop that there. Okay, so you said it was the last question? If it's not, I'm sure we'll find it. Yeah, so that's a little bit of confusion around what AI blades and turrets and stuff do, right? So remote turrets, depending on the ship, can be bladed. That's not the same as making them a PDC. So we don't know what bladed turrets will be able to do and not do. I.e., will you be able to set size of target, classification of target? Will they be able to target incoming missiles and torps like the PDCs, or is that purely a PDC thing? So we're not quite sure. So they never called them. And again, I'd say this. I think that's what you were responding to, Love Manga, is that them calling them the PDCs. That's not what happened. So the twin ballistic Gatlings can be bladed, and we've talked about that. And they actually mentioned that they were going to bring in blade models, so like physical blades as part of the mission system. So you go pick them up. That does not mean that they were going to be implemented, because of course that requires computers. We don't have computer components yet. And that sort of stuff. You can kind of see where they go in ships like the Reclaimer, where you've got the server racks and stuff, but that is a long way off. I mean, I think I don't think that's going to happen yet, because it's going to require a whole new set of components being fleshed out. And given what they've said about new features, I think that's going to be a while. So, yeah, that what that doesn't do is make them PDCs. So yeah, as this thing has PDCs, it seems way more powerful than people initially thought, given how good PDCs are right now. Right? We took two Perseus with 2 crew on each to one of the CFP defend the server ship missions. So you go there and there's like 8 ships attacking them, and we literally I went in and parked over the top of it, and the other ship came in as well. I think we fired some missiles off, and the next thing I know, the mission's gone, and I actually had to look in the journal to see what was going on, and we completed it. So just 2 ships. The PDCs did the lion's share of the work. I think we killed like 3 ships with missiles, and the PDCs did everything else. So it's a little bit scary, but yes, they are a bit tough. Good evening, Tell, to Jag Mason, to Shadow Girl, everyone that's come in that we've just seen. Good to see you all. But maybe we'll see something else about PDCs in here. I'm scanning. Shout if I might need to put the glasses back on, but shout if I've missed something, if the glasses means I miss anything. But yeah, I think how heavy is armoured, pipeline, size 7 guns. Yeah, so nothing specifically on PDCs, just bladed turrets. But any ship with any remote turrets, in theory, can be bladed. It's whether or not they give the ship the ability to do it, the computers on that ship, to depending on the balance in the ships and stuff like that. So yeah, lots of questions regarding what's going on there. But let's just pop back quickly to, there we go. So that's where so all the new people that have popped in. This is unconfirmed leak about what the Perseus is going to look like in terms of components and weapon systems. The big highlights here: 4 times PDCs, it looks like, and the twin remote turrets being upgunned 1 size to size 4s from the size 3s that they were initially pedalled at. Everything else in there pretty much remains the same. I don't think there's any big surprises in there. It's those 2 bits. It's PDCs and the conversations around their power level and how effective they make things, especially when you've only got, at the moment, 1 ship in the game with the damn things. I don't know if the 890 jump's got hits yet. Can confirm. I don't fly the 890 jump, so yeah. But we'll see. As they come back and PDCs get added to all the ships that they want to add them to, if there are any, then yeah. So absolutely. Maybe that's why the Perseus was a bit expensive, says Jedi. Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely the rule of cool as well. Mount Stunner, good to see you, bud. It's been a while, man. I know I said hello earlier, but we've missed you at kind of in Discord and stuff. Do you think it maybe hold its launch until they're ready to implement armor, or will it launch with simulated hull HP? The latter, I think, mate. I think that is going to be the and the Phoenix as well. Well reminded, Shadow. Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I don't think so. What's interesting, and Edison spotted this, which was really interesting, is Edison spotted, and I don't know whether he spotted it himself or through other people, is that they are actually starting to assign penetration values to certain weapons. So it might mean that they're starting to build that in. Maybe we'll get some temporary system that will help with the balance. Of course, one of the core components of armor will be Maelstrom, which is the ships coming apart, Bix being shot off, that we were shown at CitizenCon a couple of years ago when the Gladius flies into the rock and just comes apart and there's bits all over the place. The question we don't know the answer to is, do they need to have Maelstrom and armor? Are they inextricably linked, or can they introduce some version of armor before we get Maelstrom? But to answer your question, mate, I don't think we're going to get that. Matt P, good evening, good to see you. I bet we'll at least get a solid preview at Invictus, he says, even if it's not ready. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good looking ship, and it's, for me, it's probably the closest to some sort of old style battleship. I said this a lot, but something in the veins of Tirpitz, of Bismarck, the old style battleships, especially when you look at the Thundercloud paint. And if you haven't seen the Thundercloud paint, I will go find a picture, or if someone wants to sling me one in Discord, that's great as well, and I'll put that up because that is absolutely incredible. It's absolutely the naval raider paint. It's just very, very pretty. So yeah, so PDCs only target small ships and missiles. Yeah, and that's the other thing with bladed size 4s. They'll be able to shoot at pretty much, I think, whatever you want to shoot. It's going to be interesting how they interface that. Maybe you can select the turrets and give it kind of parameters. It's like anything of this size or whatever. It will be interesting to see. Dark Tidings, I don't know if that's you deleting your own message, mate, but I'm not touching anything, and I don't have mods, so I don't know what's going on there, bud, but hopefully you're not having too many issues. If you are, then send me a message in Discord, and I'll read it from there, my friend. I think I've just got a... Edison, thank you very much. I think you've just sent me the... Yes, sir, you have. So, let's have a look. That is the Thundercloud paint. That is absolutely maritime disruptive camo. That's very, very pretty. And do you know what? That's so pretty that I'm just going to do that and then leave that there for a second. Let's zoom out one so it doesn't do that. Yeah, that is, you will actually see ships from World War II have similar disruptive patterns designed to break up the outline of the ship. So yeah, very, very cool. So yeah, so Phoenix 890 jump and Polaris, and of course the Idris from the AI controlled Idris all have PDCs. So yeah. Distroy says, I dislike PDCs as they are at the moment, seem too OP and not balanced. Hargrim, good evening. Yeah, so the PDCs are definitely doing some work. And I think what's really interesting now is we're seeing things with like the missile meta with the Saber Firebird and all that sort of stuff. They are dominating PvP. Especially with the Saber Firebird, you can put some components on it, which means you can have a missile in the air in space in the air, before your opponent even knows you're there. So the first thing you get is and then the missile incoming, and they are being very effective. It's kind of interesting. What this does is it does hamstring ships like the Firebird. Oh god, the Talon Shrike. Ships whose primary damage output, the Eclipse, the Retaliator, whose primary damage output are missiles, torps, that sort of stuff. The Gladiator gets pretty much hamstrung by this as well. They struggle against stuff like this, but they have had free reign up until now. The problem is, especially with things like the size 9 torps, they've worked so inconsistently, they haven't been able to capitalize on that. So yeah, I get the feeling. I think what it does is it takes those weapons and makes them feel a little bit more like I've got to choose the right moment, not just yeet out missiles willy-nilly. Just, I can't shoot, I'll switch to missiles. This is going to be the target the PDCs, take them down, make it vulnerable to bigger ordnance, and then use that. Or, in the idea of ships like this, is being able to use those missiles to chip through the armor. right? So you use explosive missiles, try and target the same spot, whether you can do that through, like, dumbfiring it, coming in very close and just firing the missile out. Yeah, that's what it's going to do. I mean, they are incredibly powerful at the moment, I won't deny. Like I said, the Pyro Phase 2, going to a mission site and just having the PDCs clear up in a Polaris. So much so that it was actually quite boring, frankly. It's not fun. It was just like, oh, we've completed that, have we? Where did all the ships go? It was a little bit like, you know, I know some people will really enjoy that, but that's that. Yeah, so Mad Teapot says, even the last Squadron 42 demo had Maelstrom in it with the destruction of the larger Vandal ships. Wasn't that incredible? And I put up the react. I know it's a long old time coming, but there is a reason I put that up, and it was exactly what I stated in the video, which was, you know, Squadron 42 is what it looks like when they focus on a game, when they actually focus on it. And watching that, you know, like the spinning debris and even that sort of stuff still taking damage. When they shot some of it, you could see the impact marks. The armor was still being depleted, despite the fact it was basically space debris at that point. So yeah, some really, really nice stuff. Shadow Girl, I'm not dignifying that with a response, you monster. In the Discord, someone linked a photo of Battleship from Battleship, the film, doing an anchor handbrake turn, at which point I get twitchy eye and get very upset, because that's not how battleships work. That's not how any ship works. So there's that. So yes, very cool. We need the zebra paint for tradition stakes as socially. You absolutely, but not on my Perseus. Missile fighters are meant for fighting other fighters in my mind, so that's fine at PDCs defeat them. Dark Tidings says, I think they laid out PDCs are to be targeted and destroyed before shooting missiles. It makes larger ships puzzles to be dissected. That's why the PDCs are so strong. Yeah, and I think, you know, this is the eternal kind of conversation about ships and what ships can other ships defeat, and, you know, just how, if you are a very, very good fighter pilot, just how far should you go, and is it fair that the game caps you and says, no, there's just some ships you can't touch? From a reality standpoint, from a size standpoint, no one wants to take something like an Idris or a Javelin that can be destroyed by a pair of Gladius. And I know that's kind of an extreme example, but you get my point. And I think at the moment we've just been spoilt, as someone already pointed out, because we're just on hit points in a very fake armor system, if that at all. Some ships basically have like a blanket damage reduction, which is trying to make up for the lack of armor. Yeah, I see that a lot. So yeah. I think the main issue, it seems like one Perseus could easily take down a Polaris, when CRG said the Perseus shouldn't win against capital ships. Well, I think what they said, Cody, was that it's a subcap slayer. So the idea is that it should be able to deal damage against components of larger ships. I think the thing with the Polaris is that it's supposed to be a very flimsy capital ship. Its entire mission is to basically act like a spear thrust, right, and then be pulled out again. Is that it goes in, it identifies something that's already been weakened, i.e. the PDCs have been disabled, yeets a couple of really big torpedoes at it, and then gets the hell out of there. And what we are finding with that is, if you're not using torps, against the Idris, actually, the Polaris were struggling a lot. When the PDCs went down, you were probably finding more Polaris dying because they were firing the torpedoes too close. The PDCs were instantly engaging the torps right out of the nose and blowing the fronts off Polaris. We had that happen to us a couple of times. So yeah, that was rough to discover just how far those PDCs shot and how quickly they acquired torpedoes. So this is going to be the interesting thing, as the Perseus is against the Polaris is a very good matchup for the Perseus, I think. You know, it's those size 7s, as long as they can stay on target with a Corvette, you know, keep it in arcs, are going to deal a lot of damage. The trick is, the flip side of that is that the Polaris is a lot more maneuverable, a lot quicker, and if it does get the PDCs down, the Perseus is going to have a really bad day. But yeah. So I would have certain ships like the Ion specialise in taking out PDCs for the torp boats. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because now you're seeing like a target priority start to play out in the game, which is a really interesting scenario. Because now you're talking about the interesting things like identifying targets, scanning them, finding out what class they are, designating them a target, getting that information out to your gunners or the rest of the fleet if you're operating in a fleet. There's a lot there. And all of a sudden, like big ship combat, how that's going to look, it starts to fill its own blanks in. You know, you've at the risk of upsetting a couple of our regulars, you just got to connect the dots. So yeah. Tokada, good evening. Raygun 972, good to see you. Admiral Grufus, Shibby Pizer, I'm going to go with that because I don't think I can say the other one on stream, but good to see you. Vioblight, good to see you as well. So, Shibby, I've got to be a little bit careful because this looks like it was basically an inadvertent release. It is not confirmed. It is not data mined. It looks like it was the result of an administrative error within CIG. It was taken down very, very quickly, but it's from within CIG itself. Basically, stuff getting sent to the wrong people. So that's what we think. Not confirmed. This was not sent to me. I did not interact at all with the person that either sent it or received it. I'm insignificant as far as they're concerned, but that's where it comes from. And I've said a couple times, and I should probably say it every time it comes on screen. We don't know that this is certain, but you know that's the information. I've read it in a couple of places now. I've seen it doing the rounds. It looks a little bit more confirmed than just kind of like someone trying to spoof me, if you see what I mean. So yeah, so that's that. So hopefully that helps. I'm just going to catch up with chat now. So yeah, Tokada, good to see you. So Ares are designed to be used to pick apart ship turrets, including the PDCs. I'd agree, and especially the Ion's got some really nice numbers now. So the Ion has obviously been the poor cousin of the Ares family for quite a long time. They've buffed it. So if you've got one, it might be time to dust it off, take it out, and go smack some stuff in the face, because they are looking very, very impressive. And I know a couple of people in chat will be able to give you a little bit more impressive numbers than I can. But yeah, they seem to be kind of refocusing now from the fighters that have had a lot of attention a lot of the time back now to balancing out and separating that these are fighters. Then you have the fighters that can deal stuff to the big ships, like the Gladiator with its torps, the Ares, Ion, and Inferno with their size 7s, the Retaliator, all that sort of stuff, and then the fighters. So yeah, we'll see how this balance goes. They're obviously going to get stuff wrong. They're obviously going to get stuff really out of whack. PDCs feel really powerful, as Cody has pointed out. There's going to be some time. It's just going to take a little while for them to find a balance. Token, I love you too, buddy. And yeah, good to see you. And yes, the fact that the Perseus could be in our hands this year makes me excited in special places. So yeah, nobody wanted to know that when I watched the viewer numbers drop off now. But yes, fantastic. The Perseus' greatest enemy will be another Perseus. There'll be an imperative to have in fleet comps. A Polaris is, for lack of better terms, a boom and zoom. Yeah, so the glass cannon's a really nice phrase for the Perseus. Don't get me wrong, it's tanky. And it's obviously the tankiest ship we've got in the game right now because of the PDCs and everything else. But, and I don't see that changing massively when you're talking about the ships that we currently have in game. Where it's going to change is where you've got the bigger stuff. The Perseus comes in, and that's the whole point. The Perseus is doing to big ships what Hammerhead should do to fighters, which is, oh god, stay away the hell away from that. And unfortunately, because of how turrets work and tracking and the whole hitbox issue and fighters and all that sort of stuff, that's not how the Hammerhead is currently functioning. But, hopefully. Suryak, good to see you, buddy. I am struggling to keep up with comments right now, but we will get there, I promise. Woohoo, says Raygun. I love those specs for the moment. Me too, buddy. So what sizes are those? Yes, so I thought you might ask. So the Stronghold shields are size 3. I'm sorry, I'm flicking through stuff, so I'm probably going to light up. The Quadracells are size 3, you're correct. So's the Karma, so's the Exodus. So's the Mercury. So yes, they are all size 3 components. Again, for people that are just joining, not confirmed, not official yet. This is a rumor, for want of a better phrase, but it comes from allegedly within CIG itself. So yeah, there's that. I've also always assumed the Perseus would win the 1v1. The Polaris would beat bigger ships that the Perseus would lose to solo in IMO. Yeah, 100%. You know, the I think they got it right when they said that Polaris is kind of like going to spearhead, be the flagship of smaller kind of civilian militias and all that sort of stuff, because it does exceptionally well in those style fights. It's also going to be a great support ship, and kind of, you kind of want those captains to be mavericks. You want them to have free reign, you know, just be told, hey, this ship's PDCs are down, so go have at it. And then, you know, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, out of all the mess, and you can visualize it, right? Out of all the debris and everything else, this corvette just cutting in as quickly as it can, loading up 4 torps, firing a full spread at a cap ship, and then banking away and doing its run. You know, and then getting it, all the turrets blazing, hitting everything around it, PDCs knocking out all the missiles, and then just veering away, and then resetting for another run. Because that's what you do with a spear, right? If you're face to face and you're fighting someone with a spear and you're thrusting, it's not, you know, once they get past the spear point, you're in trouble. So the idea of the Polaris is to keep doing that, is to thrust back away, come back in, and not stay in a sustained fight. The Perseus, as we know, both from the lore and from this setup, that way, is just designed to get in the middle and keep blasting until there's nothing left, until it runs out of ammo or it runs out of people to run it. So yeah, that's kind of exciting. And that's just the sort of naval combat that I like the feel of. So yeah, so stats could change, Edison points out, and he's absolutely right. So yeah. So Ion release made me feel like a fighter, as says socially. Good. I'm glad that someone's enjoying it. For those that don't know, Ion has been updated, has been given a bunch of buffs. So yeah, Ion is looking like a solid choice right now, and no longer just the poor cousin of the Inferno. So that's good to see. I just needed green Fortuna paint for my Ion and I'll be good to go, says Stunner. Absolutely. Jedi Drifter says it will rely more on strategy than any ship you bing. I think you're talking about the Polaris there, but 100%. Shibby, more than welcome, mate. I try to, as much as I can, respond to all the comments. I mucked up a little bit. I was a little bit distracted when I set the stream up. I've got normal latency on, so you're a little bit... I'm about 10-15 seconds in front of you guys, but I will get to your comments as quickly as I can, I promise. Yeah, so... Shadow Girl says, fighters beat Perseus, beat Polaris, beat fighters. Yeah, I looking at this setup, I think fighters are going to struggle against the Polaris. I think it's just going to be one of those things that it might not be very effective against fighters, but also fighters aren't going to be very effective against it, and I think they're just going to leave each other alone. The point at which this is really going to struggle is lose the PDCs, or manage to somehow stay in front of it, out of arcs of the turrets, maybe in front and below slightly. And then, yeah, you'll be able to hit it with impunity, because, like they said, the 2 twin size 7 manned turrets apparently don't move quickly enough to effectively target fighters. Although, woe betide the fighter that doesn't get out of the way quickly enough, because I think that's going to sting. So, yeah. Kaiser Solo 76 says, I'm so excited about the ship. Absolutely, mate. And like I said to earlier on in the stream, when this does come out, if you've clicked the Discord down below, we'll put out an announcement. We will get a Perseus event going. We will try and get as many Persei in the same place as possible. If you don't have one, you'll be more than welcome to gun on the rest of our ships, and we will go and cause absolute carnage on the servers. We'll go and make a mess, and it'll be fun. And there'll be lots of drinking involved and all that sort of stuff, but it will be great to see. So yeah. So Cali VT says, hi, new here. Is all that on the screen like a wish list? As Admiral Groofers has said, this appears to be a leak internally from CIG. Unfortunately, it's an unintentional one, so I was a bit in two minds to put it on the screen. but I think, you know, it's a mistake at the end of the day. And it wouldn't be the first time it's happened. It won't be the last time it's happened. But it is unconfirmed, so we are not sure that this is what's happening. But this is what that leak contained as what's there. Halanvar says, do you think they'll add the Perseus to the Battle of Vega in Squadron 42? I hope so. I hope it gets its own little scene where it just, you know, kind of like you almost see the turrets pass in front of the camera against a driller ship or something, and the cannons are just ba-dum, 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 and just knocking snot out of the Vandal. That'll be really cool. Don't know though. That cinematic looks pretty advanced, so we'll have to see. Dark Tidings says, being able to bracket with 20 size 5 torps will be fun as well. Yep. In 2 at a time, it's gonna be scary. You know, it's if it turns to face you. I think the size 5s, it's the same size as the Gladiator, right? And they're not inconsiderable. They do some damage. So yeah, how much of grain of salt should I take with this leak? I will say with every leak is take it with do not assume until it's confirmed. Yeah, we've seen some very accurate leaks, and that's been great. We've seen dodgy leaks, which were internal leaks of variants of the cutter that never made it. That was a thing. We've seen leaks that are absolutely spot on, but we've had the whole spectrum, right? So I would be very, very careful. Don't assume that they are that it's the case until it's in writing from CIG themselves. Got my storm the Storm Counter Thundercloud Kaiser. Yeah, absolutely. We had that up just a moment ago. Yeah, that it's a very pretty skin. We had that. We'll put that up again just because it's gorgeous. But yeah. Battlestar Galactica will pound this. Well, yes, absolutely. But I mean, it's only 6 crew. So how many are on the Battlestar Galactica? How many Perseus do I get to take for the same number of players? I'll sort that. Large rock size and a cup of hopium, says Mad Teapot. And he's not wrong. Mark G, hello. These changes actually make the Perseus worth it. It was fettering on, not useful before. Yeah, I think the interesting thing here is that the PDCs were not confirmed. We had no indication of what the PDCs were going to be. We still have the problem with the arcs, potentially, with the rear turrets. So the twin size 5 here, you can't kind of see it because I don't have my mouse pointer activated. But you'll see up here, kind of, you've got the back of the bridge. You can see the white disc. That's the kind of radar dish on the top of the one of the PDCs. And then the other one's sat down aft between the engine nacelles. So they are limited arcs, but it has to have a weak spot, right? And it seems like whatever gets into one blind spot for the size 7s is going to be easy game for the twin size 4s and vice versa. So it's about putting the right size ship in the right blind spot. Fighters around the front. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. Big ships around the rear. For and you'll have a chance. And of course, one of the big drawbacks of the Perseus is the cruise speed, from what we know, was only 92 meters a second. So she is not a fast girl. She's slow. But yeah. Yeah, so lots of conversation about, you know, I think this is the thing, is that we're now seeing, this is absolutely, you know, one of the, well, it's got the biggest main gun armament of any ship in the game. And given that missiles and torps historically haven't been particularly, they've either been like massively overpowered or just completely unreliable, or they hit like, you know, slapping someone in the face with a napkin. You know, guns have for the longest time been the most reliable, and now we've got 4 size 7s that can all, for a lot of arcs, get the target in the same spot and bracket the same target. That's gonna be rough. Yeah, it's changing the game as far as cap ship goes, and then we'll get other ships like, you know, like this coming up against the Idris. It's gonna have fun. So, you know, we'll see. So yeah, so the Perseus is the one that gives me the most of a Bengal feeling with the position of the bridge. That central upper bridge where it is just chef's kiss. It's really, really nice. It's probably a bit further back than most warships. The bridge tends to be quite far forward. On a lot of ships, the bridge actually tends to be in the pivot point of the ship. So when the ship turns, the point at which around it turns is where the bridge is. On a lot of ships. Obviously, for things like carriers and stuff, it doesn't work because the bridge isn't on the center line, so the line through the center of the ship. But for a lot of other ships, it is. So, Yeah. Emerald Griffith says, I assume the leaks didn't give a when. No, nothing on that, I'm afraid. 32 Perseus death match. Yeah, that's a whole server in itself, so that's gonna be rough. Ray Alderbeck says, any word on flak or grape shot for the size 7 mains to combat small targets? I think because they're bespoke, I think they're not going to do that. I think because the Perseus is supposed to be weak in some areas, and at the moment the weakness seems to be either dealing with incredibly big ships, like getting railed by the... I should have said nailed. I had a choice. I went the wrong way. What can we say? Getting absolutely nailed by the Idris railgun is going to do this some real damage, I think. Getting the PDCs down. But I see what you mean, and those sorts of shots make sense. It's whether or not CIG seem that it's going to go the right way, and the way they can get around that, because ammo types are going to come, right? It's whether or not they say, because of space reasons, the bespokes on this can't take incendiary or grape shot. Oh, sorry, grape shot or flak. Incendiary was the other one that I was thinking of in terms of rounds. But yeah, I don't know. It's certainly not beyond the realms of possibility, but it does seem to start making this a bit of a Mary Sue in combat. And hopefully, and I'll say this as a soon-to-be proud Perseus captain, I don't want it to be the go-to for every battle, for every combat scenario. I don't want it to be that. I want to have situations where I've got to go, this is beginning to turn against us, and have that moment. So yeah. Shadow Girl says, size 4 turrets on the Polaris haven't been great versus fighters, so I doubt the same turrets on the Perseus will do much better. Agreed. Perseus isn't supposed to be at the Battle of Vega. I thought so too, but it's present at the Battle of Oberon sometimes after the Achilles. Yeah, and of course the Perseus was heralds from a time when there were no shields. So they talk about it being massively armoured, and then it was brought back in by Bishop, by Gary Oldman's character. It's brought back in, and he goes, we need those again. Basically, because it takes out 2 Vandal caps by itself. Drillers, I think. It basically, the Achilles on its own manages... it's crippled, it's beyond repair, but it manages to defeat 2 by itself. And Gary Oldman's like, we need that. We need those back. And that's what happens. As part of this program, to revamp and reintroduce the Perseus, we don't know what changes are made. Obviously now it has shields and it didn't have before, and part of that trade-off might be, you would expect from at least a balance point of view, if not the law, is dropping down the armour to fit. I mean, maybe that's why it's so heavy, right? And that's why it's so slow, that 92 metres a second, but, then again, weight in space doesn't really make sense, right? So yeah, we'll see. It's all a balance thing. Just FYI, your face is blocking the ship. Yeah, massive head, mate. Sorry, my bad. Sorry, Matt. But yeah. So yeah. Let's have a look. So yeah, she should be slow, says Admiral Griffiths, but I will put her at 110 meters a second. Yeah, I think again they're gonna rebalance everything, and I think everything's gonna figure out. We had that with master modes. We had everything drop down in speed for combat and that sort of stuff, and the actual functional speeds change. I think because if this is 92 meters a second, what does that make ships like the Javelin and the Bengal? Maybe they just make up for the fact that they've got horrific weapon ranges. God only knows. That Goliath, the 4, whatever they are, size 10, size 12 railguns they've got at the bottom of the Bengal. Why was that so hard? At the bottom of the Bengal, which, by the way, doesn't seem to be so much of a turret anymore than it does like a mounting. God only knows the range, but I think what they'll do is the quantum drives, the speed that they move through quantum will make up for the fact that they don't go anywhere at kind of SEM speeds. That's what I was looking for. Got there in the end. Brain not braining. Sorry, guys. Struggling to string a sentence together at the minute. So, yeah. You'd think the UE would update the engine socially. Your common sense, sir, has no place here. CIG isn't just trying to make this thing beat everything. You can imagine it to be good versus fighters, but I doubt it, especially given exactly that. is that, you know, I think for a long time, and not now obviously, but a long time, that was my problem with the Redeemer, is it just seemed to do everything. It was a dropship covered in guns, pretty well armored. You know, the only problem the Redeemer had is that seasons turned faster, and of course now that's not so much the case. You know, people complaining with the Paladin and that it's kind of made the Redeemer redundant, but we'll see. I think that overlooks the fact that it carries troops as well, and is going to be a great little kind of pocket C-130, AC-130 kind of fire support vessel. If the armour is very heavy, light fighters will not penetrate effectively unless en masse. Yeah, exactly that. This will be great to bombard player bases and scary. Yeah, it's going to have some fun. You know, I just hope they get the sound. This is a really weird niche thing to talk about. I hope they get the sound right for the cannons, because when this thing is firing all 4 cannons on alternating fire, so you got 1 shot out of a turret per time, and both cannons are firing at the same target, that should be absolutely terrifying and sound perfect. But we'll see. So yeah, ships like the Iron would be a big threat to it. Yeah, so Ion and Inferno are going to do some real damage to this thing, and hopefully be, you know, quick enough to get away. I know there was real issues with their speed, that they were basically like grease lightning, but hopefully we'll see. Pteryx Gaming, good to see you, buddy. Evening here, but yes, good morning, sir. Good to see you. So yeah, couple of bits. Yep, size 3s against ships. Size 4 is the most powerful turret, especially when target fighters. Hammerhead is 6 of them. This will be the first frigate-style ship. Yeah, in effect, which is really weird, because this is kind of called, I think this is called a frigate, and the Idris is called a frigate on the ship matrix, but we all know the ship matrix not the most reliable for information. But yeah, I really like this. It's sleek, it's stylish, it looks like it wants to hurt stuff. Those turrets look great to me, even though they don't have the smaller turrets on the top. I prefer the look of these turrets to the Javelin's turrets. I just think these look so much more like old-style battleship turrets. And yeah, I couldn't be more excited. Sorry, I'm trying to fight the smile, but I'm just sat there with like I should be doing a little happy dance in the chair. It just looks incredible. I'm such a happy boy when this thing comes out. It's going to be crazy. So yeah. What does the Hammerhead boost to in SCM? Kaiser, very good question. Does anyone know what's the Hammerhead boost in SCM? Because the Hammerhead's quicker than this, I think. So yeah. Did anyone here play Jedi Knight Jedi Academy and remember the 3 MC-80s that kill that Star Destroyer at the end of the game? I want to recreate that with an Idris against the Perseus. And I think this is the really interesting thing, is that these look to be kind of, you know, very brutal engagement. But from there, then they need to do something else, right? They go in, they fight, they come out again, and that's it. You look at ships like Idris, they're obviously... The Idris is more like a modern-day surface combatant, right, from the Navy. What they do is they have multi-roles, so they can launch their own organic aircraft, they can go to different places, they can provide disaster relief. The Polaris does this really well, actually, as well. You know, they have multiple med beds to deal with, you know, emergencies. They've got a brig to deal with, you know, capturing people, or, you know, dealing with criminals and all that sort of stuff. They've got a large cargo bay that enables them to go out for extended periods. Idris obviously has more of a fighter complement, but the Idris Polaris really sit in that role nicely. The Perseus doesn't. The Perseus has no medical stuff. It has no brig. The armory is basically your crew compartments and what you can put into that sort of stuff. It is not designed for extended combat without support. So, you know, bespoke ballistic guns. It's got 50 SCU, I think, from the Matrix. Those rounds have to be somewhere, and when you deplete it all yourself, take on, you know, kind of repair components and your replacement components on board, your own kit as well if you need extra kit for stuff down in the hangar. That resupply needs to come from somewhere, so it's going to come from an attendant fleet. So this very much looks like yes, it's going to be very powerful on its own, but in terms of what it was actually designed to do, which is be the subcap slayer, that's operating in a fleet. And you know, Algrid on the Infrarunners and I talked about this a lot, and Algrid very much sees this as a short range ship, and I do and I don't agree. I don't agree that it's short range, but I do agree that it's going to be very much limited to not wanting to be too far from its supply base because of the need to resupply. It gets into a fight, it extends a bunch of ammunition. If it then is struggling to rearm itself, it then becomes vulnerable because it can't defend itself. You know, you've got the ballistics on the back stock, although you can change them out. Yeah, it's going to need some support in extended operations. You know, something like a Gemini to come and keep stocking it up and, you know, whatever. So yeah, it's an interesting ship. So yeah. CRG didn't nerf it, they changed its role. It's a menace to Dark Tidings. I agree. That's the Redeemer that we were talking about earlier, but I agree with that 100%. So yeah. So we saw a video when I think it was Foxalox who said it took an Ion like 200 shots to kill a Polaris. And I think this is the interesting thing, right? Is at the moment we're still very much focused on the idea of killing stuff. From CitizenCon, what we do know is they mentioned the phrase death of a spaceship. And that was, they were talking about the different components you can put on it, the crafting stuff, the quality. They said it also wants to be a big thing. Because there were like 90, whatever it was, 80-90% of the ships that are claimed at the moment aren't destroyed at all. So they're trying to step away from that and have people like actually worry about their ship. And I think that's what it is, right? It's not so much. There's three ways to kill a ship, right? This is from is you stop it being able to do its role. You mobility kill it, which means it can't go anywhere. You'll hear that a lot in like World of Tanks and stuff, as you track something, you mobility kill it, or you actually hard kill it, right? You destroy it. And it doesn't need to be it's destroyed. It's that it's burning out of control. That the crew are trying to frantically to keep the ship afloat. And it comes back to priorities that you have in a warship: fight, move, float. If I can't fight, I need to get out of there. If I can't get out of there, I need to keep the ship afloat. And of course, nothing's float. Well, you are floating in space, but you get my point, right? Is that those are the priorities that you go through, and the things like the Ion and the Inferno are not going to be killing this. They're going to be hitting the turrets because you knock one of its turrets out. Right, as a captain, I'm now going. I'm fighting an enemy that's good enough to be able to knock a turret out. They're obviously targeting it. They're getting through the shields. They're hitting it directly. They've knocked out this 50% of my main armament gone. I need to get out of here now because I can't wait until I lose the other one, because what happens if I get interdicted or I get jammed, I can't get out of there. So you see what I mean? So I think at the moment, yes, it's all about killing, and I get that. In the future, it's more going to be about doing enough damage to make your opponent get out of there, especially on the big ships. And just know that you've saddled them with a horrendous repair bill that's probably going to take time. Not to mention huge amounts of components and all that sort of stuff. So yeah. Perseus is going to be my daily driver, says Kelly, and no better looking daily driver exists in those. So Hammerhead max speed Kaiser is 320 meters per second. Nice. Wouldn't calling this a frigate be okay? Says Socially. I mean, it's an older ship, thus smaller than modern frigates. Yeah, 100%. And I think it's the Idris that is misnamed. I don't think the Idris is a frigate. I think this is. Is this image a promo from the 2021 or part of the link? So no. So the image, I believe, is back in the day. I do not believe that this is the current image. Although I'm happy to be told wrong. Apteryx. Can you imagine how scary a wolf pack of these things would be? Says Callie. Yeah. Raiding parties of these. You imagine if you've got Org v Org combat, and you've got them with their supply lines, with the hulls and everything else, moving their supplies, moving their weapons, moving their ground vehicles. Even things like Liberators, Krakens, and then you put this in the mix. You put a couple of these in as a raiding party. Imagine not only the damage that they could do, but imagine what your opponent Org now needs to do to be able to track these down. Imagine the forces they need to commit that can reliably locate and disable or destroy a pair, even a trio of Perseus. That's terrifying. And I know we're talking about huge Org v Org warfare now, but I mean, hopefully that's where this game ends up, right? That you can have these entire huge battles. Maybe when they've added a few more systems past the 5, and they are like complete frontier systems. There's nothing there. They are, you know, brand new, newly discovered, nothing built on yet. And these are the systems where orgs can go knock the snot out of each other without worrying about crime stat every 20 seconds. Yeah, and they've got to go there with enough of a fleet to be able to sustain and all that sort of stuff. That sort of stuff would be really impressive. It needs to be quicker, or it's a sitting duck than the hammerhead. Yeah, I think this is the thing, right? Is it's slow, steady, and powerful, and that's another part of this. Is one of the drawbacks of it is that it doesn't get to run. So your Perseus captain is going to need to be thinking ahead to, I need to spot not when the battle turns, I need to spot it 5 minutes before, when things are beginning, the tide's beginning to turn, because that's when the Perseus goes. Enough damage, I'm out. Because otherwise it's going to get caught out. Something's going to come in, they're going to quantum dampen it, it's not going to get out of there, and it will be picked apart at their leisure. So yeah, unless it's got support. Love the bridge pace on the Perseus generally. Me too, mate. Absolutely. So I know that I'm just thinking because there's basically ancient that it was have to fit into frigate the size of the time at Shadowgirl. Yeah. Shadowgirl says CIG kind of bungled their ship size terms, but the Idris is a frigate. Anything smaller fits into the Corvette size. Yeah, I could go with either. What's really interesting is that nowadays destroyers are larger than frigates. Back in the day, frigates and destroyers and corvettes were all kind of, they were interchangeable. They did try to, at one of the treaties, one of the naval treaties, they tried to kind of talk about a destroyer as this many tons with this sort of, you know, up to this size gun, and of course no one had to follow it, and they didn't. So you had ships like the Graf Spade, the pocket battleships, a cruiser with battleship armaments. So yeah, it got kind of mad. And bearing in mind that a lot of what I talk about is my naval experience from modern fleets. What they're talking about is World War II in space. So, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah. This is the new US littoral ship, says Richard Scarlett. Not sure. Not entirely sure about that. So, yeah. Interesting that the Perseus is smaller than the Galaxy. Yeah. I think, you know, I think that's a function thing of having potentially that many players or that many NPCs on a ship like that and pathing and stuff. That might be an issue. Oh, sorry, I've got the Genesis in my head. The Galaxy. Yeah. Yeah. That'll be a function of the modular, I think. And also it looks, because it's so like almost Star Destroyer shaped, the Galaxy, but a lot smaller. You've got a lot of dead space out in the wings, it looks like. So yeah, I think the functional space kind of dictated that. Charlie McAwesome. So I hope when the game moves forward, having to fix your ship will factor heavily into the murder hobo attitude we have. It may become too expensive when repair is standard. Yeah, because Mark's saying that the 80 to 90% of ships being reclaimed is trying to move ships around or get to paying for repairs. And that's very interesting. Having played a lot of in Pyro at the moment, I've got ships all over the place in Pyro. And it is one of those, well, hang on, now I've got to get there. But part of this, I think, is going to be the shuttle. There's the shuttle back to your ship that they were talking about. You just get this little shuttle that flies you up there, and then on autopilot, it disappears again. So there are things, I think, that will stop that from happening. And the repair bills and all that sort of stuff will be one of them. Perseus Ironclad Assault will be a nice combo. I'd never thought about doing those. I might, maybe that's a video. Let me know if you fancy that, but maybe I do a video on interesting pairings between the Perseus and an other ship, and just talk about how that could work. That might be quite good fun. Yeah, Soriak, I will credit you with that one, buddy. I'll just 2 seconds. I'm gonna make a note because I kind of like that idea. I think that might be quite good fun. But yeah. So, thank you very much. Katie says, I think it'll be the daily driver of most people with the money to buy it. I have one at this point. I assume me and two of my mates will use this and nothing else. Yeah, I think there's going to be a bunch of things that are going to come in that are going to make things like that harder. So one of the things I think they're going to see for larger ships is that going into and out of atmosphere is going to cost more for larger ships. It'll be more wear and tear, potentially more damage, all that sort of stuff. And I think, because then the shuttles make sense, right? Things like the Pisces and the Archimedes, the Merlin, they start to make sense because they become less expensive to run in atmosphere. So yeah, I would imagine that's because it's like anything, right? It's like repair bills in other games. They need some way to siphon money off of players. And I think that's going to be one of it because it also helps with the balance, right? Yes, sure, you can land a Kraken on a planet because we've seen pictures of it doing, or at least we think pictures of it doing that. But why would you want to do that repeatedly? Same with the Reclaimer. There are going to be some deep space ships that should never just end up on a planet. And it will be not just a do we have the time decision, but this is going to cause a lot of wear and tear on the ship. So yeah, after the turrets are killed by a flight squadron of Ares, the engines will be next, I imagine. Yeah, or potentially the engines first, right? As you take the engines out, this thing then struggles to maneuver, and it becomes a lot easier to stay out of arcs for it. And stay out of the way of stuff that can hurt you. What would be an ideal ship for groups of the Perseus? Ironclad, maybe. Possibly. Gemini springs to mind. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Vulcan, I think, is going to be too small. The Vulcan just can't carry enough stuff. Potentially a Crucible with a Scarab. So using the Scarab as a supply base rather than like a repair bay, but we'll see. I think what you're doing is you're highlighting, whether you mean to or not, Matt, is there's a gap for repair, rearm, refuel ships. We have the Vulcan, we have the Gemini, more the the rearm, refuel side of things, and then we have the Crucible, and then nothing else. So I think there's a couple of bits to go there. A mixed group of Polaris Perseus hammerheads with escort fighters would be awesome to see, as long as they're not coming for me. Yeah, 100%. Charlie McCawsome says, when you talk about speed and running, a huge thing people don't consider in this game is range. The size 7 should have the range to stand off, then an Idris, for example, only has the size 10. Yeah, 100%. Engagement ranges, being able to keep things at arm's length. I think the thing there is that whilst you can do that, one of the things we talked about is if you look at if you take that as the Perseus, anything out here and out here where my arm's going down is going to be problematic for arcs for the hammerhead for the main turrets. And then the smaller remote turrets at the back are going to be problematic as well, looking either side of themselves. So that's where ships want to go. And when you start running away, that's where they're going to end up naturally. Or you've just got to accept you're getting up close and personal, and they're going to wear a lot to the face, but so are you. So yeah, talking about the Ironclad, so Space Apollo, good to see you. Do we have any updates? No, not as far as I've seen. And there was someone else as well that popped in. There was someone, Timble, good to see you. That was who I haven't said hello to. But yeah, no updates on the Ironclad yet. Other than we know that they're going to be moving into Drake ships, so expect the Ironclad to come soon. The big interesting question mark will be Kraken. Yes or no? But yes, no, just hope, says Space Apollo. Yeah, 100%. Will the Polaris be on sale soon again? Apollo, I think... yeah. So socially has kind of got it. It'll be May or June time with the Invictus launch week. The military ships go on sale again. So yeah. And lots of people have just said that, so I didn't need to say that at all. But I've said it now, so thank you for answering them in chat, guys. So yeah, 100% in for that one. It makes for an escort that doesn't require a pile of people. Oh, the Ironclad, you mean? Yeah. So yeah, around May, June time, Apollo is that one. So Mark G says Perseus will be a sweet extreme risk target for bounty hunting for small groups. Yeah, that's what we want to do with it. We want to go up and take this thing up against hammerheads, and I guess we're going to end up fighting other Perseus, right? That's going to be the scary thing, is they're going to give AI these things, and if the AI starts to get better, I don't know what do you guys think? How have you found AI on the ground recently and AI in space? 'Cause two things that I've noticed. I've noticed AI on the ground is a lot more deadly now, especially in the remote asteroid bases. They're taking cover. I've also had one throw. I thought it was a player. It threw 3 grenades in quick succession at us, but it was an AI. It wasn't a player at all. Um, we've also seen in space. I've been rammed a lot less in a fighter, and a lot of that stuff seems to be quite. I, I was fighting in something a bit heavier, the Hornet, I think, the Super Hornet, and the Mark One, and some of the ships were really good at staying out of arcs, just trying to get back onto them. I only had a couple of seconds of shooting before they were gone again. So yeah, the AI seems to be working a lot better, and putting upgraded or more reactive AI into these things scares me a little. I'm not going to lie. So yeah, let's have a look. Perseus with a hammerhead combo would be perfect companion, says Mark G. Yeah, I'll see if we can put some stuff in, and I'll probably cover that one because it's the most immediately obvious. Hammerhead's weakness is larger stuff. Perseus' weakness is fighters, we think. They're a natural complement. But I'm interested about Soriak's idea of the Ironclad, and maybe there are some really interesting combos that we can pull out of that. I mean, it's probably not going to be the a Perseus and a Starfarer, for example. But yeah, we'll see what we can do. And the Perseus for 890 jump, not coming. I'm afraid. I'm not doing that one. But maybe some other stuff we can find. Shinobi, good to see you, bud. Shinobi says, it's difficult and expensive to fly a Perseus for box missions in Atmo. I'll deliver the boxes from orbit. Yeah, and we'll see prices change and that sort of stuff. We've already seen it with the missiles changing. I think the missile torp price that they kind of backpedaled from, I think that's where it's going to end up. I think they showed their hand there with where they want it to be, and they want torps and that to be really expensive. So we'll see with that. But yeah, I can't see the ballistics for this thing being bespoke, very cheap. Or the other thing as well, when you have a look at something like the Quanta system, so this is the real world supply. It's like Eve, but the AI are also involved, so the AI will be moving stuff around as well as players. For bespoke ammunition, it might be that you struggle to get hold of it, and that you need to be in more lawful systems, or that it requires some sort of rep gating, or something else that you need, maybe an unlawful, because in lawful systems it's military grade and you can't get it. But that's another way they can limit these things from being endlessly effective. Dark Silver, good to see you. Welcome in. Catching up with chat. I need to put my glasses back on. This is the one weird thing with YouTube chat is I found I can't get it to change the size. I can't manually zoom in and zoom out, and I also cannot get it to change the text size manually, which is bad when I'm old and starting to struggle to see things. But we'll get there in the end. So yeah. Destroy says there's definitely a picture of a Kraken on the ground landed, and I can't wait to use one as a mobile base. Yes, there is. Yeah, I think there's one. It's like in a dry dock sort of situation on a dodgy looking dry dock. But there is, yeah, because you can see landing gear on it, I think. Edison says, I love the Perseus, but people claim it's broken OP, forget it's slow. I mean, yeah, I mean, the people claiming that it's broken OP, just let it get in game first. And then give it a patch. Because we know that things get brought in quite powerful. Give them a chance to knock it back down a size, let it kind of calm down a little bit, and then we'll see where it is. Of course, when it comes in, it's just going to slap, which I'm not going to lie, is why I want to get so many of us in these things to go and just terrorize a server. So yeah, make sure you've got Discord joined up. I'll probably put something on the community page as well. Although, having said that, I think that might invite griefers and stuff. But yes, we'll see. Ironclad, more like Rust Bucket, says Shadow. Shadow Girl is massively a fan of Drake. She absolutely loves it. So yeah. Yeah. Shadow Girl will talk with you all day long about Drake ships. This is a test to see if I read the messages first. Sorry, says Socially. Mate, no worries at all. Liberator first, perfectly, ships and supplies all in one. Yeah, it lacks the kind of big ship repair, and I think this is what's really interesting, is that there is no good ship that sits in that niche at the moment. Certainly not one that's released. So, yeah. Problem with the Ironclad is it has the same weakness as the Perseus. That backside protection for the engines. Yeah, she's got a big backside. Absolutely. Fake news. Fake news. Says Shadow Girl. Yeah, 100%. Imagine if they made this a destroyer-based ship. What, as in the same size as the Javelin, Richard? Yeah, that would be quite scary. Kraken can land, it's just not going to fly very good. Yes, the Kraken has all the aerodynamics of a tower block, so it's gonna struggle there, I think. I think it's going to be, I don't know if anyone remembers, it's gotten a lot better now, but the Reclaimer, the big salvage ship, was an absolute nightmare to land. It was basically, you had to the whole time be almost at max thrust upwards. You just kind of let it go, let the thrust go every time and let it drop, and then just put it back. Otherwise, you basically fell out of orbit like a stone and just made a massive mess on a planet's surface. And I think there's a lot of cap ships that should fly like that. The Idris should be something else that really struggles. Jock Cop, good evening, buddy. Yeah. So Jock, take with a pinch of salt what's on the screen, but it looks like this might be the current layout of the Perseus. Big things, 4 PDCs, and the twin remote turrets have been upgunned from size 3s to size 4s, if this is true. So, once again, we don't know if this is true, if this is true. So yeah. Smart marketing, says Cody, bringing them in, making them slap, sells a lot more. Yeah. See, I guess I take a different perspective in that I don't chase the meta, right? I go for what I enjoy and what I like. And sometimes, for example, until recently, ships like the Gladiator, I enjoyed them, but they weren't really worth taking in a combat situation because you got beaten around. Now the Gladiator seems to be doing a lot better. I don't like the idea of selling something and making it powerful and then nerfing it, because to me that's dishonest. You're selling something on false pretense. And I get it, because I make this argument sometimes as well. Some people say, well, hang on, it could be the first thing you buy in game. You don't know how it plays, but, you know, so how can you buy it based on how powerful it is? But I think now, reasonably, we as a community have come to understand that when these ships make it into the game, they tend to be a little bit more powerful, and then they get nerfed backward. And I think that's a bit of a shame. You know, I'd just rather them. But then again, there's so much to do. There's so many ships that are still going to come in and fill spaces. I think everything is, you know, one of the things I'll say a lot about this game, and if you haven't heard me to say it before, you will hear me say it now, is that the only mad thing that you can do in this game is expect anything to stay the same. Like, with most games, we go in going, well, why would they change it? Well, the question at the moment is, given how much development is left, is why would you expect things at the moment to stay the same? And my answer is, I think the answer that I've arrived to is you can't. So everything is going to change, but I don't like the idea that, you know, it seems intentional. Something comes out incredibly powerful, gets knocked down 3 months later. I don't like that. But I don't think a lot of people do, so, yeah. Charlie says, disagree on nerfing this one. The Perseus was upgraded on almost every gun. Oh, you mean Polaris was upgraded on every gun, Charlie. This one only has size 3 to size 4, is not much of a buff. Yeah, I think it's in keeping with what else. I think, you know, one of the biggest criticism I saw of the Perseus' loadout was those twin size 3s. It was either the size of the guns or the placement. The placement hasn't changed, but that's why I think upgunning them is not a massive issue. But, I mean, maybe I'm just biased because I like this, but I'd like to think that I'm able to say, I mean, if they'd stayed size 3s, whatever. That's what we knew from when it came out, so, yeah. CIG should adjust stats guns up rather than nerf at release. Yeah. Mark G says, I also think as more ships come out, the tweaking room is getting smaller and smaller. You can make a pretty good prediction based on others in the class. Yeah, the space is becoming very congested, especially around fighters, right? And I think what we're going to see at some point is they're likely to go. The way they give themselves room is by redefining things. So they redefine maybe the sizes, and then they have, maybe size 1, 2, 3 fighter weapons, size 1, 2, 3 medium weapons, size 1, 2, 3 large, or whatever. Right? I'm not wedded to a particular idea, but they do something to give themselves a bit more wiggle room, possibly. But then again, there's going to be so many more ways to balance these. There's going to be armor, there's going to be hit pool, there's going to be components, there's going to be the resource network is a big one, right? Cheaper ships, you would expect to have fewer links. So damage in one place is going to be more of a problem because more systems are relying on it. Big combat ships, you'd expect to have lots of links. So yes, you might take out a node or two. You might lose one or two things, but the rest of it is all interconnected, and you can just reroute power rather than having to, not being able to do anything until it's repaired. And I think all of these things are going to start building up. And I think this is why things like this won't be touched so much by fighters and that, because it's a different style of gameplay when you're taking something like this into combat than you are when you're taking an Ares or a Scorpius or a whatever, right? Yeah. So I think that's, and of course there'll be a little bit of crossover between the two. I'm not saying there won't be, but I think that's where the real differences are going to come in, because you can't do that sort of stuff with the fighters. The resource network stuff, if you've got your head buried in the HUD doing resource network stuff as a fighter, you're just going to fly into something. You're not doing the rest of it. So I think that's going to be a case of, for those ships, it's going to be, I got damage, I need to go get repaired. Whereas these ships, I've got damage, I need to manage it. What does it affect? Can I still do what I achieve? Am I now standing into more danger than I'm willing to accept? And so on and so forth. It's going to be very different style of gameplay. And that's what I like. I like the fact that these will be very, and I'm not just talking about Perseus, I'm talking about big ships at all. But, Idris, this, Polaris, Hammerhead, will be much longer time to kill, because that will be the decision. Is I'm not expecting, unless I can catch them cold, I'm not expecting to kill these ships in every engagement. I'm expecting to damage them to the point where they've got to run. They've got to get out of there, or they will be picked apart. So, yeah. So, Richard Scarlett says, I kind of half feel that there should be a different server set for these big-ass fleets wars than people keep referring to. Yeah, so they talked about that. Richard, I don't know if you saw, they talked about instances for big ship combat, for fleet combat. So you'll be able to take, two orgs will be able to go into an instance and fight. There will still be potentially the open world stuff, but that's going to rely a lot on chance or big orgs fighting it out and then pulling the smaller ones in as like mercenaries or vassals, very much like Eve. Whereas, if your org's like, well, we're in the middle of secure space, we don't really have any enemies because we don't want to do that in the game, in the system. But we'll join an org fight and we'll get up against another org and we'll do it in space where it doesn't matter. And then we'll go back to being friends afterwards. And I like that about the instant stuff. I think that's going to make that a lot more of a common occurrence and make it much quicker, especially if you're someone that just goes, hey, I'd love to join your org for a bit of a fleet combat. I've never done one before, so I wanna sit in the side gun of a javelin and just watch that battle like it happened in the Squadron 42 demo, but I want to see it for real. I want to see it against players. That sort of stuff, why not? If it makes it quicker for us to get into that and be part of it, why wouldn't you? I remember still trying to organise 40 players to do vanilla WoW raids, and that was a nightmare. Yeah, and actually, 40 players, you run out of players real quick, when you're doing big stuff. So yeah, so hopefully that's good. Mark G says they already said that with crafting there'll be upgrades on weapons and parts. Yes, they have. Engineering is going to shake things up 100%. Jock Cop, they're going to do instance missions for fleet battles. Absolutely. The other cool thing about that is it might give us the option to go and do fleet battles against the Vandal and against the AI. Which will be really cool, because then you've got the story and more of the voice lines and stuff. That'll be fun. If they do that, I'm going to spend a lot of my time. Mark G wants the ability to come in with my reclaimer after a fleet battle. Absolutely. I think a lot of what they're going to find is a lot of mercenary guilds, whether they're the mercenary guild or the council side, mercenary orgs, sorry, are going to end up with like a salvaging sub component where or sub team where they go in after a big fight that they've won and they take everything that they can, and while the rest of the fleet stays there and stops the defeated side from coming back and being vindictive against the salvagers. But yeah, I think that's very likely. So yeah. I used to love OG WoW raids. I did. It just a nightmare to organise. But yeah. There are more people than I think is given credit for that simply want to do engineering in someone else's ship. It's quick. And also, the other thing we've got to bear in mind is that the people here were not representative of the whole Star Citizen community, were the active Star Citizen community, right? There are some people who've bought in and they've bought a game package and they've taken one look at the game and gone, there is no way that I'm going to continue to pour cash into this until it's fixed. And they're sat on a game package, maybe a ship or two, and that's it. They've gone and done something else. And they are not going to be the ones to go and buy something like this, right? That way. If I can rotate my camera around, I'll remember that time. So this, they're not going to go buy stuff like that. And they're not going to buy the Polaris. They're not going to buy the Idris. So there are a huge amount of players out there who are unwilling or unable, but mostly unwilling, to want to buy something like that for a computer game, because the idea of spending $700 on an in-game ship it seems like madness to them, right? And I get that. So there are going to be loads of players who their only option to go and experience ships like this before they earn their own in-game, which is going to take a long time, let's face it, is to go and join other people. And some people just don't want the faff. I want to go and fight on one, but when it blows up, I don't want to be footing the repair bill or having to deal with replacing it. I get that 100%. I think that's very reasonable. But you're right, Jockcop. There are a lot of people who are going to be happy to be crew. Apteryx says, are you expecting the Perseus to come with the multiple ammo types it was concepted with? Apteryx, I would love for it to. I don't know. I mean, maybe this is going to be the PDCs of ammo types, right? Maybe this thing gets the ammo types. And is the first ship to have them, just like the Polaris was the first ship to have PDCs, and then ammo types will be slowly rolled back in with everything else. I don't know. I've always got to temper it with they're working on stability, not new features. But maybe that was already in the works. Maybe they were, because they've been working on the Perseus for a while before they made that announcement. So maybe it was already in the works and they're just going to follow through with it. Don't know. I would love to. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't come though, basically. Bridget Scott says, if I'm going to have things like this come destroy my non-PvP base with Starcom talk, I want to use this as a mobile base. Yeah, and I think, I don't know. I know for a lot of the bases, the shields will stop like big weapons killing stuff. Whether it extends to size 7s, I don't know. I know they were talking about primarily things like a Retaliator's torps, the torps out of a Polaris, the railgun off an Idris, the Moabs off an A2. But maybe it stops things like this as well. There is something in the shields. I remember writing something, but I can't quite remember what it was, so I don't want to say it, and then people go, oh, Badger said, and it's not right. But there is something about, I think, in lawful systems, it might be that shields stop all damage, other than, kind of handheld stuff. So I don't know. But we'll see, and I'm sure they'll fix that. But we'll figure it out. So yeah. Did you pick something suitably worry for Perseus name, mate, said Jockcop? Yes, I did. No, I'm not telling anyone because someone will steal it. But yes, I do have a name picked up. And if you read any of the Warhammer books around Titans, the Titans have some absolutely... and I've not gone for these, and take these if you want, but there's one book, one's called Invictus Antagonistes, one's called Dominus Victrix. Like, they've got some really nice Latin names and stuff like that. And that's not what I've gone for, but it's a great source of inspiration. But yes, I have picked out a name from a Warhammer book that I've gone, that would be great on a Perseus. So yeah. But yeah, the Titan names are great. Well worth a look. And you can pick them up on like your Kindle or your iPhone books app or whatever it is you're reading on these days. If you read. Because we all know gamers don't read. So yeah. So lots of people getting Perseus for cheap. But yes, for so many people, what's really interesting is so many people don't and I didn't that much, right, understand the CCU game. Edison can, and the Info Runners, Algrid and Execute really opened my eyes to the CCU game. So many people don't understand that they'll just buy stuff stock. So, and it's the thing is that now there seem to be a lot less decent Warbond stuff. So I think the CCU game is likely to slow for the time being, at least, until we make enough noise. Janos Morrissey, good to see you, bud. Welcome in. What ammo types is it meant to have or be able to internally reload? So, there's an interesting photo. I'll see if I can go and find it while we're talking. But there's an interesting photo. In fact, it was the background when I was on the Info Runners. It was my background when I was on screen. But there's a great internal shot. Let's see if I can find it. Do you know what? I might just go to the ship page rather than anything else. Because somehow I've ended up in the brochure bit. Didn't want to be in the brochure bit. Let's go with that instead. There we go. I know someone will have found it, but it actually shows you the loading system, or at least the concept art of the loading system. There we go. So one of the stand by, open. There we go. So it's that. One of the weapon systems that are one of the loading systems in the in tanks is something called an auto loader. So it basically loads up like a set of rounds, and you can see here it actually says "keep clear auto loader" just over there. That yellow text where the rounds are says "keep clear auto loader." We don't know whether that means it can kind of go like, oh, here's the next 6 rounds or whatever. Here's the next 6 rounds. I use that because there's a battle tank that loads in 6s. Or whether maybe you can, where it says you can change it on the fly. One of the things that we talked about was maybe you can put an electrical charge over it to change a ballistic round to act more like a laser round. So because it's electrically charged, it does do more damage to the shields, but the shields actually stop it and it loses the penetration. We don't know how that's going to work. But yeah, this seems to be. It's going to be really interesting. If they actually enact that, that's going to be crazy. The idea that you could stand here with the turret closed and you could actually watch the rounds clatter past, that would be incredible. I also kind of like the look that they look like the armor-piercing fin stabilized discarding saber rounds from tanks, which it's just a posh way of saying, something with fins that is just a solid shot that's designed to pierce the armor. But yeah, they look really cool. If they get close to this, I'm going to be a little bit excited. Let's just put it that way. But it looks really good. I'm really impressed with how that shows up. So yeah, really nice internal shot there of the Perseus. I gotta say, I'm kind of stoked. But yeah, whether it changes on the fly or that, honestly, I don't know. We'll figure it out as it comes out, and I'm sure they'll make a big thing about telling us. But yeah, very very cool. So yeah, imagine having to reload it by hand. So shall I go? Yeah, absolutely. What they tend to be is they come in like cartridges, so it just pulls ammo out and then discards the cartridge like a box that it comes in effectively. Whether that works in this, I mean, this thing looks like it is loaded individually, but yeah, someone else can do that. I'm the captain. I'm far too important to do that sort of stuff. But yeah, but yeah. So so what ammo types is it meant to have? We don't know. We know that they've talked about things. So they've talked about one of the ammo types they've mentioned on one of their live streams was incendiary. You've got the idea of flak. You've got the idea of armor-piercing rounds, high explosive rounds. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Sounds like a midshipman job, says not a Jockcock. Yeah, absolutely. And that would have been me a while ago, right? But not now. But yeah. So again, don't know. I think it will be fairly basic to start off with, and then later on, yeah. Ian Round says Jodomo. Jodomo, good evening. Good to see you. I owe Jodomo a public apology because I meant to disconnect him from chat. He was leaving anyway, and he said something rude. I was like, "Oh, let me help you out," and instead of disconnecting him, I actually kicked him from the Discord server, and it took us a week to get him back. So, yeah, my bad, mate. Sorry about that. But yes, let it be said that when I make a mistake, I own up to it publicly. So sorry. Complete admin abuse. Nerf frowns and shadow guns. Yeah, 100%. The Desperado Wow Blasters, size 7 Nerf bats coming out of that thing. So yeah, that'd be brilliant. But yeah, Charlie McCawsome says, don't know if this was mentioned, but with the PDCs, I'm going to assume the size 4s will no longer be computer controlled. That increases ship's complement from 3 to 5. Yeah, so she was billeted for 6. Captain, 2-man turrets, 2 remote turrets. And then we think one. There's image of them like being in the torpedo room at a console, very similar to what we now have with the Polaris. I think that's it. It is on the Perseus. I'm seeing that, isn't it? Yes. So let me go and grab that one as well, and we'll go and open that too. Save image. Wait, 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 wait. Open. There we go. So that. So very similar. So that's the forward turret that'll have the auto loaders either side of it. We hope, and then you've got the kind of torpedo space as well. So it'll be interesting to see from here whether that's what we end up with. Don't know. Yeah. Front turret accessory. No, front. Forward. Forward turret. Forward, actually, but forward turret access only. Not front. Not front. Go. CIG, if there's anyone watching and you want someone with naval experience to come and help deal with this stuff, like, I'll do it. I'll do it. All I want is a tour and some free ships. So, oh god, I'm now selling my soul to CIG, but you know, never mind. So yeah, 3 Perseus names so far, says Edison. Nice. CCU is still worth it, but the savings seem low as yeah. So CCU is absolutely worth it, but they don't seem to be as impressive as they were before. So yeah. One thing they may premiere with the Perseus is they're bringing back any new tech is in manual reloading. That's going to be the interesting thing is when with ballistic rounds with anything, where do we put that into the gun? The ones that can take it internally, like the Javelin, the Idris, with its rail cannon shells, or rounds. This is like, how do we insert that into the guns? We've got a cool rotary loading system for the Polaris's torps, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility that something like that. Maybe it's just an ammo box we just feed into. You know, like the what do you call it? The Matrix. The things, and you just kind of punt the round into the box back, and then just spits it out when it's done, or ejects it into space, whichever. But yeah. Mayhem, Incendiary, Flag, AP, and Plasma rounds are all rounds mentioned. Yeah, there's some nice ones in there. On the topic of Discord, just FYI, pasted. But yeah. The concept artists are allowed to make these small mistakes, which gets fixed up. You're not wrong, absolutely. Bow and stern, port and starboard, says Jello Drifter. Yep, and that's important when you're both facing in different directions. That's kind of important. Yeah, so I did send you a screenshot of the 4 different ballistic rounds. I'll have a look in a bit, Edison. But I think we're pretty much there now. So you did. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit that on screen because that's quite tiny. But thank you. We'll have a look at that. Maybe on next stream, maybe in a future episode. Maybe there's enough there to do a video. Who knows? But we shall have a look. I think I'm pretty much, which is great news, caught up just at the end for all of the comments, which is great stuff. Guys, we've had a lot of people on today. Obviously, the Perseus was a big thing. The only thing I will say before you go, be around on Wednesday. I'll have a video up as soon as the roadmap thing comes out and a react. That roadmap is going to be really, really important. And I know we spent an awful lot of time talking about the Perseus and not a lot of time talking about the roadmap. It's going to show us a lot, I think. It's going to show us, back in 2018, Chris Roberts said they were going to focus on stability, and then they didn't. This is going to show us where the focus lies. This is going to show us what's actually changing. There's a lot of questions. They're going to have 4.1 in there, as well as 4.0.2. So we're going to see a new format, I think, for the roadmap. They've talked about and beyond, although that might well just be the 1.0 patch. I think this is going to really set the tone for what we can see this year. You know, are Resource Network and Fire and all that sort of stuff still coming, because that was slated for 4.0, or are they genuinely going to leave all of that off and just do the stability, or was it close enough that it can squeak in? Are they focusing on the stability to the exclusion of all else, or are they just going to let those last little things come and cross the line and then go from there? Or are we just going to get another roadmap filled with new features and actually what they said isn't going to come to fruition? We don't know, but Wednesday we will, and you can guarantee I will be there with a video for you guys talking through. But it has been crazy. There's been a lot of new people in chat. It's been great to see you all, and I really appreciate you all being here. Fantastic to see you all. I've just realised, do you know what I did? I opened the wrong... I opened completely the wrong bit on my music. So the end stream music, I'm buying myself time. I'm doing as much as I can to buy myself time to get myself out of here. Because it's the end of the day and I just want to go to bed. But it's been crazy to see you all. Thank you ever so much for joining. And yeah, hopefully see you again. Like I said, couple of shorts this week. Video on Wednesday. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff. You know what you're doing. You've been watching Drinks with Gaming Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. I'll see you soon.